Hey everyone, I'm in Hong Kong. It's a city filled with a lot of people from different backgrounds. Now, I'm Indian, but I grew up here, and I wanted to make a video that examined the lives of foreigners in Hong Kong. So we've got a lot of people from the Philippines, Indonesia, South Asia, as well as European countries, and I just thought it'd be interesting to kind of find out what's it like for those people that are considered foreigners to live here, and especially find out what's it like to grow up here as a foreigner. So come with me on this journey and let's check it out. Now, Hong Kong is known as an international city with roughly 10% of the population being foreigners. So let's take a look at where these people come from and what their lives are like. I'm gonna go and type in Hong Kong demographics here in Google and click demographics of Hong Kong and come to the Wikipedia page, and it basically says that 91.6% of the population of Hong Kong is Chinese, 2.7% of the population is Filipino, 1.9% of the population is Indonesian, and the rest being the whites, Indians, Nepalese, Pakistanis, Thai, and Japanese, coming in at smaller numbers like 0.8, 0.6, 0.4, 0.3, and 0.2, 0.1, and 0.1%. Now, I want to draw attention to the fact that the Filipinos and Indonesians make up roughly 5% of the population in Hong Kong. And just to give you an idea of what that actually may look like, compared to the United States of America, 6% of the population is Asian, and they count East Asian and South Asians together to come up with this number. So the fact that Filipinos and Indonesians themselves are roughly 5% of the population in Hong Kong goes to show you just how large their population actually is. And this might surprise a lot of people because typically when people outside Hong Kong may think of Hong Kong, they may not think of Filipinos and Indonesians, right? So, for example, if you think of the United States, you kind of get a rough idea that yes, there are African Americans there, there are definitely white Americans there are definitely Asian Americans there. But when you think of Hong Kong, you may not think about Filipinos or Indonesians or Indian, Nepalese, Pakistani, Thai, Japanese, or white people. So now I'm going to interview someone who's worked in the nightlife industry in Hong Kong, and he's going to tell me about what it's been like. So I'm here with someone who's worked in the nightlife industry in Hong Kong. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, all right? So first introduce yourself and what you basically worked on. And just tell us about your how long you worked in the nightlife industry in Hong Kong.
Yeah, so I was the director of a company that had holdings in multiple F&B outlets. And I worked in the industry for about 7.5 years.
Okay. Yeah. Great, great. So you were running a bar here.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
bar and the restaurant.
Okay, okay. So what's the sort of general area the bar was located in?
So my bar was located in Lan Kwai Fong, and the restaurant was located in East Central.
Okay, cool. And Lan Kwai Fong, like what's this location known for?
I think Lan Kwai Fong is known for dining and late night parties,
Okay,
and it's known for being active 24 hours a day.
okay, okay. And is it just Lan Kwai Fong or is it also the surrounding area, like Soho?
Yeah, the surrounding areas are known for that, but Lan Kwai Fong in Hong Kong is the first of its kind. And after Lan Kwai Fong's popularity, other places started showing up around
Got,
the
got.
vicinity.
So that the nightlife sort of expanded to Soho. And,
Yeah,
uh, okay, cool, cool. Um, so still running a business here. May I ask where your employees were from?
I would say 95% of my employees were Filipinos.
Okay,
Yeah, and the other 5% maybe Indians or Nepalese. one of my roles.
That's interesting. Are there a lot of Filipinos working the nightlife?
Yeah, quite a few, I would say.
Okay.
Quite a few. I mean, a majority of them work in nightlife, I believe.
And so you mentioned that 5% are Indians, right?
Indians, Nepalese, Egyptians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Can you tell me more about like your staff? Like, are they new arrivals in Hong Kong or do they volunteer?
No, I believe most of my staff have been in Hong Kong for a long time. So we barely had any new arrivals. Maybe one staff out of 15 was a new arrival.
Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. Um, do you tell me if these the people like Filipinos and like people that you mentioned, do they work in the nightlife across Hong Kong or is it just this particular area?
I believe they mostly work around areas that cater to expats.
Okay.
So I would say Gold Coast is an
Okay.
outlying area of the Filipino city, Chip Chachoy,
Okay. Such a
Causeway Bay,
Right.
Central,
Right.
Shangwan. So these are places, Michael Shake.
I see.
Yeah.
So why do you think this type of work is so popular with I just mentioned the Filipinos, but also like Indians and Egyptians? Uh, is there something that draws them to the nightlife work, or what do you think that is?
I mean, for Indians, it's not very popular that they work in the nightclub industry, but it's somewhat popular around Chipchachoy and I would say the island.
Okay.
And usually they work as managers or do some posts. But as for Filipinos, it's very popular, I would say, because they are very hospitable people in
Right.
general. So and their English is quite good most of the time. So that's why.
Yeah.
And for Egyptians, I think this is a rare thing that you find Egyptian people
Okay.
cooking. But I had a fusion Mediterranean bar. I said it's Egyptian food.
I see.
So
I see.
that's why the chef was from
I see. Okay. I've been to places like Causeway Bay and uh, Fortress Hills now, and I didn't spot as many Filipinos working there. So I think it's more like concentrated in the areas that you mentioned, like Chichor and Gold Coast, and definitely like LPF and surrounding area. Um, so you mentioned that students are pretty hospitable. Do you reckon it's because uh, a lot of them have difficulties finding jobs in Hong Kong? Because I know, for example, uh, I don't see a lot of Filipinos working in other industries in Hong Kong, but they tend to aggregate in the nightlife industry. And I was wondering why that is. Because in the Philippines, obviously, they do everything, but when they come to Hong Kong, for some reason, they tend to draw them for nightlife industry.
I believe education plays a role in it.
Okay.
The majority of Filipinos don't pursue their tertiary education.
Okay.
I don't know if that sounds good, but
Okay.
that is the reality. And usually, what Filipinos do is they start at the bottom but slowly
Okay.
rise up
Right.
the FPs.
So you're saying, mentioned that the Filipinos, majority of them grew up here and they work for the nightlife industry. You think they don't pursue their tertiary education? Okay. Okay.
Which is why, as you know, Hong Kong is a competitive market.
Right.
So, and tertiary education is quite important to at least work in
Right.
the financial sector or urban sector.
Why do you think that is? Why do you not pursue like tertiary education?
I believe it's just a very competitive market and competitive to get into universities in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And Filipinos usually, just like Indians or Pakistanis, I would say,
Yeah.
they end up going to schools that are not as expensive or like I would say the elite schools.
I see. I see.
And this hinders them from pursuing their tertiary education.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. So you mentioned the schools. think the schools have something to do with the fact that they're engaged in this tertiary education?
I think for the most part, yes. Of course, that every school has its students. You pursue their tertiary education, even though the school is bad. But I think a school plays a big part.
Okay, so do you think that if they go to better schools, they would pursue tertiary education?
I think the chances of them pursuing it would be higher.
Okay. Um, I I didn't I didn't realize that the schools have such a big part in whether or not but it's pursue tertiary education. Uh, but that's an interesting about. Do you think the job market in Hong Kong is uh, more caters to people from different backgrounds? Like, for example, or you think they have a difficult time finding jobs other than migrants?
I'm not sure about that, but I think somehow Filipinos usually gravitate towards the nightlife because they already have someone they know
Okay.
that vouches for them in a certain restaurant,
I see.
and that's why they slowly gravitated towards.
Okay. Um, so we've been talking a lot about Filipinos. I also noticed that a lot of the police people work behind life in Hong Kong. You see that to be
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I've seen a lot of Nepalese people. Again, I believe it's the same reason as the Filipino, like the hospitable people in general.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a lot of Nepalese people, especially that work in the kitchen or the bar.
Okay.
They are usually quite new to Hong Kong.
I see.
Yeah.
Um, that's interesting. I'm gonna ask you to read an article now, and I want you to just tell me what you think about it. Okay, so can you sort of summarize what you read in the article?
So pretty much from what I gathered from the article, the main issues are the language barrier that people have, or being unable to speak Cantonese, Mandarin
Right.
for jobs, and
Right.
since a lot of companies that used to hire people with English speaking skills are now moving out of the city or slowing down business in the city,
Right.
and a lot of mainland companies are now setting up their offices in Hong Kong,
Right.
and that primarily work with the mainland China.
Yeah.
The need for Cantonese and Mandarin speaking skill has gradually increased,
I see.
and this stops employers from hiring expats that don't have those particular set of skills.
I see.
And at the same time, a lot of expats that come in that have visas based on their jobs also bring in their spouses
Yeah.
and then come in on dependent visas.
Right.
And people that want to hire the spouses who are on dependent visas are now scared that if the spouse that has the initial visa loses their job, the dependent visa also gets cancelled.
Right.
It also increases the
Okay.
turnover rate of.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So let's start with the language issues. So this article is mainly about people who are dependents who if their spouse gets a job in Hong Kong, they obviously come on and then and they try to look for a job. But they're having difficulties because although their spouse got a job, they like for the reasons that you mentioned, the language barriers, they can't even find a job here.
Yeah.
So the same applies to the for example, the communities that we spoke about earlier, like for example, Filipinos and Nepalese and Pakistan.
I think Pakistanis usually are better at their Cantonese skills compared to Indians or Nepalese or Filipinos.
Okay, but
But
say
that's
if they don't know Cantonese, I would assume the same would apply, right?
yes.
Okay. So you mentioned that the schools that the Filipinos and Nepalese they attend, they end up not pursuing tertiary education because of that. Can you tell me more about these schools? Like, do these schools equip the kids with the sufficient language skills that they need to gain meaningful employment in Hong Kong?
I mean, I would say for local schools that are taught primarily in English, I would say these schools don't push their students to learn Cantonese or Mandarin completely.
Right.
You can get away with just the GCSE certification,
Right.
which is not that intensive, or it doesn't really give you the language skills required to survive in the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Okay. So what I'm taking away from this is that these community sessions are science that we Filipinos, they are not equipped with the language skills that they need to get uh, jobs other than the jobs they're able to find in nightlife industry. Uh, so we've talked about a little while. We've spoken about how maybe the schools are at fault. Also how the economy in Hong Kong's favoring uh, companies that are doing a lot of business with China. So English may not be something that the employers really require from their employees as an skill. So having gone through all of this, I guess my final question would be: would you recommend people from these communities, from these countries, to move to Hong Kong? And if you, and what would be your advice to the, for example, from these countries, and they're thinking about whether or not they should move to Hong Kong?
I mean, if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I would say move to Hong Kong. But currently, with the current economic situation of Hong Kong, I would say it's best to stay away from this.
Okay. Barring the economic situation, if you could focus on the issues that we talked about, what would be the sort of advice you would give to the people?
I would say the most important thing would be to brush up on your Mandarin skills. Because I believe that's currently a lot more important than Cantonese in the city.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, learn Mandarin to be able to find employment. Otherwise, may not be able to get the jobs that want.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, great. So I'm here with someone who's been living in Hong Kong for a handful of years now, and we're just going to talk about your experience of working in Hong Kong. So I believe you were looking for a job in Hong Kong. Can you tell me what your experience was like?
Yes, so I've been living in Hong Kong for about 3 years. I've had 2 jobs. One I found after a few months after arriving in Hong Kong, and after I left that job, I was looking for another job for several months. Now I've been in a new job for about 8-9 months now. So yeah, I've looked for jobs twice. First time when I arrived, I came from the UK where I had been in a long-term job for many years, and thought it would be easier to apply for a job once I moved in Hong Kong. From abroad is very difficult because they ask for phone numbers, they ask for in-person interviews. So I knew that once I would be there in person, it would be easier. And it probably took me 4 months after I arrived. I took my time because I was settling in Hong Kong as well, so getting all sorts of documents ready, including visas, phone numbers, bank accounts, things like this that are very, very important. And you have to fill all sorts of forms when you're applying for jobs, and some of those are required. So once you've filled a couple of forms and you sort of save them on Google, then it makes things a bit faster. But yeah, there's lots of companies where you constantly have to fill out forms, and it's a bit of a pain, but you get used to it, and I guess websites a bit better than others for that. But yeah, Hong Kong is a city with lots of jobs. Actually, it might depend on which sector work at. So I'm in IT, particularly in data, um, data analysis, so data management, if you want to be more specific. And I did find lots of offers on different levels, like entry jobs or higher level jobs. And it was quite interesting because I came here with different experience in the UK, different reference points, different salaries as well. And one thing that people ask in Hong Kong, recruiters or companies, is what is your previous salary, for example? And it's usually quite a different reference point as well, because it's life is quite expensive here in Hong Kong. So salaries are a bit higher, rent is higher as well.
Right.
And so quite often, if you compare to your home country afterwards, your salary would be much lower, always relevant. So it's a bit strange for you when you get your first job in Hong Kong, when you're trying to justify your past experience or past salaries. And also something I've noticed quite a lot is and I think it's more frequent now than I've heard it used to be in previous years. It's for many jobs now, particularly for middle level jobs, they would ask you to speak, to have knowledge of Mandarin or Cantonese.
Right.
Because lots of foreigners have left and therefore more local people have taken the jobs, or mainlanders from China. So it's usually seen as a plus if you can speak the language. It's most of the time they say it's not mandatory, but yeah, it's definitely helpful. And I've noticed that maybe 80, if not 90% of the jobs I was looking for mentioned one of the two.
Right.
And so at the beginning you apply for those jobs and then you realize you don't really get answers, and maybe you realize maybe it's because they would rather have people who speak extra languages because the rest of their staff is local. So
right.
So that's one of the obstacles I've met when I was looking for.
I see. Is this a great obstacle, or is this something that is negligible, just nice to have but not necessary?
Well, in general, it says nice to have, and so I've met agents or directly that they shout and you'll say like, yeah, it's more about the candidate. Like ideally, it would be nice if someone spoke the language, but
right.
It's not mandatory if you fulfill all the other criteria. It's okay, and I would say it's definitely a great asset if you can speak the language. Mostly Mandarin, but I think locals really appreciate it and make an effort in speak Cantonese. But I think for Westerners, it's almost impossible to have Cantonese.
Right.
I mean, it's a great achievement in general, just to know another language, particularly Mandarin, to be able to understand the culture. So I would recommend it if you plan to move in an area to either learn it in advance or take courses.
Right.
Because it's just really opens perspectives afterwards. I did put it in my CV that I was a beginner, so I've done a certain number of hours. I think I have a certificate as well, but it's such a different language. So it takes a while to be able to speak it and to develop a professional level.
Okay, so were there any jobs that it was necessary to know the language? Because I've seen jobs where it says must know Cantonese or Mandarin.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I've seen quite a lot. So I've definitely stopped applying for those.
Okay,
even though sometimes the recruiters will say like, no, it's not. It says mandatory, but it's not mandatory.
Right.
But you really need to have met the person there. Yeah. And then I've learned, so certain websites I've managed to eliminate, like in my searches, any sort of any mentions of Mandarin or Cantonese. I think by default I remove it from my searches.
Right.
Because otherwise you spend 30 seconds browsing a job description, and then at the bottom it says requires Mandarin, and you're like, I've just wasted
cheeky little note at the end of those job posts is like, oh, the language requirement. And then you're like, oh, damn,
I think after a bit of experience, I've just realized there's almost no point of applying for those jobs. So if you can I found little ways on certain websites to filter out jobs like this. So it takes me a bit of time, but yeah, there are lots of jobs. I think, like I said, in my area, it's probably 80-90%. Even though it's tech, you would think like English for everyone, but
Yeah, that's
I've even applied to like foreign companies. Like even I'm French originally, so I've even applied for a French company, and like the whole team was like local.
Right.
And so they say and they say French is a plus. I'm like, great, I speak French. But so Cantonese is also a plus. I got along very well with the manager. But in the end, I didn't get the job. And I was like, oh, that's so strange. Even a French company.
Yeah. That is strange.
But it wasn't mandatory, but the whole team was local.
But I would think that if there were a candidate who did know the language or did meet the language requirements, even though they're nice to have, they would be at more of an advantage.
Definitely.
Right? So that's something we can't deny.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's the same in every country.
It is the same in every country. Yeah. It is the same in every country.
Yeah, the more familiar you with the language, the more fluent you are.
Absolutely, and that's
and with the culture as well. Like it's not because you speak English that you can get a job easily in the UK or in the US.
And that's something really important to keep in mind. I think a lot of people, they tend to underestimate the sort of requirement or the weight of the language requirement. But that's something good to keep in mind if you're applying for jobs here in Hong Kong.
But again, it's Hong Kong. Pretty much all the jobs are advertised in English. So you come here and you have to learn how to speak English. So that's the main thing. So you'll find jobs, and the jobs are advertised in English. It says optional Cantonese or optional Mandarin. At least you have jobs. That's the thing. Whereas other countries, you might go to another foreign country where, like Japan, where the level of English is much lower. So it like to find jobs where English is the main language. It's much less common.
Right.
In Japan. So as much as I'm sure they have lots of jobs, but jobs which are only in English, it's a small percentage. Here, there's part of it.
And so you were running a group that sort of helped people find jobs. What were some of the difficulties, if you're aware, that people may have faced in those groups?
Yeah. So a bit of context. So after I think the second time I was looking for jobs, I stumbled upon a Facebook group organized by French people to support each other looking for jobs. So I first started by attending it, and then the person organizing it found a job. So she asked me if I would be happy to help her lead it, or take it over for a few months until I found something. So I did that, and so I met lots of different people with different profiles. I guess they all spoke French, but I think many of them were complaining about the language. Many of them were complaining about like some of those big websites like Jobs.de or LinkedIn, where you just never get the answers, or you have almost no chances of getting a job. I ended up getting a job through LinkedIn, so I was quite fortunate on that side. I think another key aspect is having a working visa when you arrive in Hong Kong, because as much as it's quite fast to get one, so if the company is really motivated to have you, they will apply for a working visa for you. But sometimes companies are a bit lazy, and they will, if you already have a working visa, it makes things much easier. Or actually, if you have a dependent visa, so if you keep with someone who already has a working visa or already has the capacity to stay in Hong Kong, you can then be attached to them, and then you don't need a working visa. So usually companies find that much better. But yeah, I've met a few French people who were struggling with that. Like they're looking for a job and looking for the visa at the same time. And they did see a bit of reluctance in some companies.
I see. So when we talk about, in particular, for example, you mentioned technology jobs. You work in technology, so do I. Are there, for this particular sector, Are there a lot of tech-related jobs in Hong Kong?
I mean, on my side, yeah, for me, yes, I found lots of things in data. But you probably saw quite a few jobs as a data engineer as well, or like web developer or software developer. I think it's one of those industries that whatever country you go to, you'll find something. Hong Kong is really big in finance, in insurances, and I think tech in general. So you'll find jobs in that area. Also, I think for foreigners, finding jobs in the education sector is quite a bit. So it's pretty well paid as well. But in terms of technology, it's a little bit behind the education sector.
Okay.
But yeah, those are some areas that work pretty well in Hong Kong.
I see. Okay. Cool. So now I'm just gonna ask you read an article, and then just once you're done, just get some of your comments on it, your take, and if you can relate to it, or yeah, sure. All right. Thank you. Okay. So, can you tell us about the article?
Yeah. So the article is what the title is basically about people, Westerners struggling to find jobs in Hong Kong, particularly highlighting two things. So either the fact that they don't speak the language in Chinese, or otherwise problem with their visa. So I think the article spends quite a bit of time highlighting dependent visas and some companies don't really like that.
Right.
And reading the article, I actually felt there was a testimony of several people, particularly one guy that felt very close to home. I was like, I went through the same period, I went through the same obstacles, and it sounded like I had a similar job as well. So I'm like, is this an article about me? They just changed the name. So yeah, it's like,
Right. So the article talks about some people who face difficulties getting jobs due to some language barriers. Is it dependent on the industry, do you think? Or is it broadly applicable, these language barriers? So, for example, in the nightlife industry, language barrier, particularly in this area, might not be an issue. However, if we were to venture forth to like some other areas, the language barriers, they may apply. And are there industries or where language barriers aren't as high, or is it like it's all over Hong Kong? It's like all industries. What do you think?
yeah, I mean, there's definitely some jobs only for locals, or only for Chinese. And if you don't speak the language, if you don't have it, so lots of shops. I mean, of course, if you think of restaurants, if you go for local restaurants or a non-Westerner restaurant, not speaking the language is definitely a problem. Same for like auto shops as well. Like I'm sure it's definitely with necessity.
Right.
I think I've met I've heard about lots of startups. Whatever the industry, they try to be very international minded in the way they run things. So even though it would be lots of locals, but the main language would be English, and actually sometimes they even look forward to hiring foreigners just to have a bit more diverse staff. But I think it's a bit like pretty much every industry. It can be accessible for foreigners. But afterwards, I think you know immediately if the job is really for a local person or not. You're not going to apply to being a doctor if you can't communicate with the patients, especially if most patients are local. But you can open an international clinic, I guess, only for people who speak English. So it's always an alternative, I guess.
I see. That's great. That's great. I did have another question, but I just forgot.
I mean, something I slightly disagree with the article, but maybe I could be wrong about it. So it was they spent quite a bit of time talking about dependent visas, and actually I didn't realize that so many mainlanders applied for dependent visa. So apparently 90% of the granted dependent visa have been given to mainlanders. I didn't know it was the case. And from what I've heard, like actually companies just really enjoy when someone has a dependent visa. I can understand that there's an obstacle thinking like, oh, it's you find yourself. Our employee is then dependent on their partner, and then if the partner moves, they have to move as well.
Right.
But actually, if the company is really motivated by a candidate, they should just then apply for the work visa for themselves.
Yeah.
So that's all. Like I think it helps to hire people.
Yeah.
Like usually the person will say, "Yeah, I'm here with my partner for at least 6 more months or another year."
You know what?
And if the company is really motivated, they should just apply for the working visa for them.
I think this article, my sort of what I would like to comment on this article is that it's really, really sneaky. It's really, really sneaky in the sense that it says dependent visa holders are having difficulty finding jobs in Hong Kong due to language barriers. And it makes it sound like they're the only ones that are having this difficulty. So, for example, because their spouses get job offers, they're able to come here. So they don't have issues to find a job because they already have one. That's why they come to Hong Kong. But the dependent visa holders, the spouses, they are in the same boat as the rest of us, as I am, as you are, as if you're a foreigner watching this video, as you are, that if you were to look for a job here in Hong Kong, you would face those same barriers. You would face those same difficulties. So this article disguises this in a really, really, I would say, I'm not sure if that was its intention, but that's also applicable to the rest of us. It's not just the dependent visa holders.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, I think it's easier if you have a dependent visa. I think the article is trying to say it's really tough for them. I don't think it's tougher if you have a dependent visa. Actually, it should be easier. It's just you're in the same boat if you don't speak the language. That's all. Yeah. It looks like the article is focusing on people with dependent visa. But again, I think they're just trying to say it doesn't make it much easier if you have a dependent visa.
The same barriers that apply to me or to someone else who is a foreigner and is looking for a job in Hong Kong apply to the dependent visa holders. So that
and I think if you have a dependent visa, it means you have a partner who has a job, and therefore you do have a source of income.
You do have some stability.
If you're single, for example, and you're looking for a job, either because you moved in the country without a job or you've lost your job, you need something as soon as possible because rent is extremely high.
That's right.
I'm sure if you live with a partner, it's still high. You probably live in a bigger place that's high, but it's much more urgent when you're single.
And this brings me back. So I just remembered the next question I was going to ask. What would be your advice or suggestion to people who are taking a look at Hong Kong as a place to either study for their bachelor's, undergraduate, or their master's, or people who are looking to come here for some professional experience, they find a job here or they have received a job offer here. So there's two groups, students and working professionals. What would be your advice to these two groups? I've seen both in Hong Kong. I've also seen people planning to move to Hong Kong, and in the social media groups, they will just post messages in the blog saying, "I'm planning to move. Any recommendations of anyone has a job for me or has a place for me to stay in the next few months?" So some people are extremely well organized, and Hong Kong is a great place, very, very vibrant city with lots to offer. You might not find something immediately, but it will take a few months. I met a few people who were extremely motivated every day, just applying to tons of jobs, doing lots of interviews, meeting lots of people left and right, and afterwards getting a job within a few months. So you might not get something immediately, like in the first 2 or 3 weeks. But if you persevere, you'll get something, especially if you're new in Hong Kong. So there's lots of headhunters, lots of recruiters
And if they see a new profile, they will be very excited. So don't hesitate to ask for help on social media. Make sure your CV or your LinkedIn is fully up to date when you start looking for jobs. Don't hesitate to add people that you might not know on LinkedIn as well, particularly if they are very well networked, if they are headhunters, if they are from recruitment agencies. They might offer lots of helps. Also, people use WhatsApp a lot in Hong Kong, so make sure you have a local number that you don't hesitate to share your WhatsApp with recruiters or others. It will go really fast in that way. So I think in Hong Kong things move extremely fast, and you might, if you don't get an answer within a week, you might never hear back from that job. And so do just give it a try. There's lots of opportunities in Hong Kong, and as much as there are a few obstacles, just give yourself a deadline and specific objectives. So how many jobs you're applying, how many people you're contacting, how many interviews, how many hours you're spending preparing interviews, and it's possible you might not get a job, but put yourself a limit to how long you want to give it a shot. And at least you'll be in Hong Kong, and it's a fantastic place to discover and meet people here.
Okay, one caveat I'm just going to add. I don't think most of that applies for students.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that was more for working professionals.
Yes. Yeah.
For students, could you give a quick, maybe tailor your suggestion or your advice or for students who may be studying here?
Yeah. So I don't have that much experience in the area. So I guess if you come here as a student, or if you're planning to study here as a student, you need to, before coming to Hong Kong, you need to confirm your course. And then afterwards, I guess you just have to find a place to stay. But are you asking about finding a job afterwards as a student? Yes. Sorry, this is what I misunderstood. So you do. There's quite a few entry-level jobs for students, or people with less than a year experience. There's quite a few, I think, similar things to graduate schemes as well. And some websites, they will actually have a filter where they can say level of experience, entry level or other things. So there are definitely jobs for students. But I've met people who, I think it's the same everywhere around the world. You apply for jobs and they ask you for experience, and you're like, I need a job to get experience. Right. So you will probably struggle to get your first job. But I think do not give up. I think a major sort of additional information for students, I'd say, is that after you graduate, you would have to apply for a work visa, and one of the requirements to sustain that work visa is, of course, employment. And if you were to lose your employment, so for example, we've seen downturns in the economy, and if you were to lose your job, you would have to find a new one within a certain number of months, if I remember correctly. So maybe it's within 3 months. And if you aren't able to find a job within 3 months, you would have to leave the city. So that's something that I think students should take into account. And again, we've gone over some of the difficulties of job seekers, but foreigners who are job seekers here, they face. It's not going to be easy to find a job here, to put it bluntly. So if you're a student, please keep that in mind. Would you recommend this city to students to come here, study here, then potentially find employment here? Yeah, so I haven't experienced the student life in Hong Kong, but it's definitely a city where there's lots of things happening. So it's definitely worth the shot. I think the global economy is quite tricky, whatever country you are. So applying for jobs in the UK, in France, or in Hong Kong, it will take a while to find a job. So I would say give it a shot in Hong Kong. It's a very dynamic place. Even if you've never been here, at least you'll discover a new culture, and there's lots going on, and then you can build a network here as well. yeah, it won't be easy, but I think anywhere around the world won't be easy. So if you have the means and if you're determined, yeah, come to Hong Kong. Try.
And you touched on network. Do you think networking opportunities, or your network is constrained by, whether or not you know Chinese or not, or does it not matter?
No, I think networking is just the definition is about meeting people, and then they will recommend you to certain companies or to other people that they know looking for jobs. So you don't necessarily need to speak the language for networking. Like it's all about either meeting certain recruiters who will know the right jobs for you, or just meeting people working in certain companies, getting to know them well, and then they're going to be like, oh, I have a job. I know there's a job that just suits you or not, or I can recommend you another person. So yeah, there's lots of foreigners in Hong Kong. I know there's a huge French community, and I'm French myself as well, and I've been relying quite a bit on it. But there's lots of lots of other communities, lots of other hospitals as well, with very active. There's lots of job fairs. There was lots of seminars and different ways. I think there's lots of opportunities to look for jobs, but I think there's different organizations that help people to network and to help them to look for jobs as well. So yeah, if you know where to look, there's lots of opportunities for sure.
Okay. Great. I guess that pretty much sums it up in terms of job seeking in Hong Kong. I hope viewers find that insightful, and hope we were able to shed some light on some of the questions that you may have. Thank you very much. All right, what's up? So I'm here with a friend of mine. By the way, we can blur out your face and change your voice if you want to be anonymous or something.
That's fine.
Yeah, so we kind of went to the same secondary school, and right now he's teaching in a school as well. So I kind of wanted to go over like what's it like to go to school here as like an ethnic minority in Hong Kong. So I guess let's start by talking about our school first, like the one that we went to. So I'll just say that I think it's unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you explain a bit why you seem to agree with me.
So basically, Hong Kong, because the majority of the population in Hong Kong is local.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of local secondary schools.
Yeah.
That are not really fit for students like us who are not of Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about Nepalese, Pakistani, you can even put the white people in, right?
Yeah.
Who are the minorities?
Right.
We're called EM.
Right.
So we have specific schools that we send most of the majority of the EMs to.
Yeah.
Most of the EMs, because they're kind of poor.
Yeah.
They have a difficult time living in Hong Kong, working in Hong Kong, and their parents can't really afford to pay expensive school fees.
Yeah.
So most of us, we end up going to these designated schools.
Yeah. Designated schools. Yeah.
So it sort of creates a situation where we're isolated from the local.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to be getting the same level of education, but we're totally not, because our Cantonese we were taught, if you remember, was very low level.
Yeah.
We couldn't even converse for like more than 5-10 minutes.
That's right.
And it was something basic, very simple, right? Like dancing, full orange. So when we're taught Cantonese at that level, and by the way, we were like 15, 16, right? And we were learning kindergarten stuff.
Yeah.
So how are we as EM supposed to integrate into society?
That's right. That's right.
The community, to look for jobs and to have a better life when we're already set up to fail.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's like growing up, in Hong Kong, going to these schools.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you can afford to, if you have the money to, we have EM parents who they send their kids to those expensive schools.
Right.
And they do better. But for a majority of us, it's tough. Right.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. Like, I felt that when I was in school there, I didn't really care much about what's going to happen after I graduate. But when I stepped into society, I realized, because we're kind of in a bubble, aren't we?
Yeah,
When we're in
yeah.
that school. And when I think all of us, we experience when we step out into broader society, that we feel that, oh, we're a bit unequipped to
Mhm.
integrate or to find work in this society.
Mhm.
So a lot of us, end up working in places where language isn't really necessary or a big issue. Yeah. Um, and a lot of people watching this might be wondering, okay, why not send your kid, or why didn't you just go to like a local school, or like, where they speak Cantonese and stuff. So for me, I don't know why I went to our school. I think my parents just put me there, but I don't really know their reasoning behind it. So yeah, what would you say to that? I think that's a pretty valid statement.
Because, well, I myself am a teacher. Just to let you know, I'm teaching, like I said, in a designated ethnic minority school.
Right.
So the majority of, well, it's not really designated now. Back then, it used to be a lot of ethnic minorities.
There were
but
barely
now,
any
yeah,
Chinese people.
yeah, but now, there's a lot of influx of mainlanders coming to Hong Kong from China. So our school's kind of like 50-50, but we do have enough ethnic minorities. So the main thing is for that is because a lot of the parents, EM parents, are unequipped to sort of think about their children's future, because for them, coming to Hong Kong, it's not necessarily for themselves, it's for the kids, right? So they come to Hong Kong, they work, and they want to send their kids to schools. And now they don't know the landscape of Hong Kong. So they have no idea where to send their schools. And then the government has made it very convenient for them. We have these designated schools. So the parents don't even have to think.
That's right.
Right. So your parents, even my parents, they didn't really think about these things. They were just trying to make a living, right? Trying to provide, working every day. And they were like, you know what? The government said I can send my kids to these schools, and then these schools can cater for my kids.
Yeah.
And they trust the government, so they send us to these schools.
Right.
And then now this keeps happening.
Right.
It's a cycle.
I read that schools like ours, which are called like designated schools, they receive extra funding to teach kids like Chinese, and they have like tailor-made Chinese courses for the kids. So actually, the parents may think that, okay, learning the language might not be an issue, that it's actually possible, because the school receives funding specifically for this. But we know, because we went through it, that it's just a load of bullshit. It's not at that level where we can communicate effectively at all. I don't know if you know about the history of designated schools, though. Do you sort of know like how they came about to be?
As far as I know, I might not be 100%.
Yeah.
This might not be 100% accurate, but I've heard that back then, a lot of schools were closing down. And so one of the ways was to allow EM to come into the school and slowly turn that school into a designated EM school, so that you can make sure that the school can survive at least for another 5-10 years.
That's interesting.
And then that kept happening.
Yeah.
So one example is Glee Path. If you remember, when we were in Broadway, the designated ethnic minority school was supposed to be Broadway, right? There was us, the majority of us, EM. And Glee Path was mainly, if you remember, it was local. A lot of local students, students.
Yeah.
But now it's very different. Glee Path has turned into a designated EM school. So there's almost no Chinese students there. There might be a few, but probably mixed. They speak English medium, right?
Right.
So that's one of the ways.
Yeah.
This has become popular. And also the government, every year there's a policy address.
Yeah.
You have to sort of make everyone happy.
Yeah.
Because there's so many types of communities here, right? So for them to make sure that the EM community feels safe, they always make sure that, we have provided food for you, we have centers open for you, we have welfare for you. We have all this for you. We're trying our best. And that's sort of how they make sure that this happens every year.
Okay.
So that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. But the idea of having like this a school like this where it's sort of cocooned off from like the rest of broader society, I think it's a really strange idea. I don't see the point in it exactly. I would have thought that it'd be better to, like, for example, when us ethnic minorities, when we live in Hong Kong, to have schools that just like we can go to school with we can. I mean, obviously we can, but the fact that these schools exist at all to cater to us is pretty fucking stupid. And I think it has some like its origin. Its origin. I think it's like in the colonial times. It started in the colonial times, so I think that might be the reason why it's like that. But I don't think there's like a reason for this to continue. Or do you think that these schools should continue?
No, I don't think so, because one good example I can take is from Japan.
Okay.
If you go to Japan, you will notice that they don't really speak English there. Everyone speaks Japanese. Even if you're a migrant worker, even if you're an EM in Japan. Because when I went to Japan, I met a lot of Nepalese.
Right.
They spoke fluent Japanese.
Wow.
I met Indians fluent Japanese. I think a guy who made my takoyaki was from Bangladesh, probably Bengali, for speaking pure Japanese. So they're sort of forced to learn Japanese before they come into Japan. Whereas in Hong Kong, it's a free city. They don't really have those restrictions. So anyone can really come in for work.
I see.
So these schools that open up, they sort of, like you said, isolate students. And so the government's not really trying their best to help us assimilate. They're sort of just isolating us. Right? As students and community, we sort of stay in our own bubble. We never really go out.
That's right. On your last point, I mean, it's the same for me right now. Like, I barely have any local friends. Like, I have like one guy from university that I keep in touch with, but the rest are all like foreigners like me. So, I think it's like the government has such an overarching influence in the lives of the people here, right? Like, there are a lot of issues, and the government's really quick to sort of pass laws. Like, we had the laws passed due to the 2019 protests, where we can, we can't really say certain things anymore and stuff like that. So I find it to be a bit like hard to believe that the government acts like it's powerless to like fix this issue of like these designated schools. Because I think these are like pretty big simmering like social issues in Hong Kong. It's one of the biggest issues here is that society is a bit fragmented based on your background or your
race,
your school, but in this case, and the opportunities that you get from it. Now, I feel like we've sort of spoken a lot about our school and you also where you're working at right now. So I don't know if you know about this, but Hong Kong is trying to get more students from abroad to come study here for tertiary education, for university. So they're increasing the quotas for international students to come here for universities in Hong Kong universities. What do you think? First of all, is this like a good idea on part of the government, or is this like, what's your thought on?
Does this depend on, because they have some seats reserved for local students?
That's right.
So does that change how much local students get in?
I'm not so sure about that, but I don't think that's an issue because the population of the local students is actually like declining. Let's assume that they're either local students decrease or the locals don't. So, but I can see where you're going with this. What do you think if the local students stay the same?
So if they don't take away the seats for local students, I think it's an okay idea because, I mean, due to COVID and also the protests, Hong Kong really, you know, its economy really went down. You know, shops closed down.
That's right.
Where like they went bankrupt. You know, people lost jobs and homes. So this is one of the ways they can help Hong Kong. I think.
Yeah.
Because what do you call this? Tourism.
Yeah.
Education tourism.
Yeah.
Really, something like that.
Yeah.
Because in Australia, they make a lot of money. A lot of international students from Nepal, from India, from you know, most of the Asian countries, they go to Australia.
Yeah.
And Australian, they make a lot of money off of this.
Yeah.
So I think if this is what the government is trying to do here, I think it's okay. But if it really affects the people,
The costs of the local,
might not be a good thing.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the students in Hong Kong are decreasing, they're leaving Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And now if you're allowing international students to come into Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and then you take away the spots for locals, they'll just leave Hong Kong.
Okay. What would you tell like prospective students or prospective university students or prospective like high school students, even secondary school students, or people who are just moving to Hong Kong and they're in like still secondary school, or parents of primary school students? So there's like three groups, like primary, secondary, and for people looking to come to Hong Kong for university. What would you tell like these three groups?
One thing, I always tell them one thing: please try to learn Cantonese. Because you and me, we went to Broadway, and we couldn't really learn Cantonese because we were stuck in our bubble. We didn't really have Chinese friends. We have one Chinese friend, and he's from Canada. So like that pretty much tells us about our language ability. You know? And as adults, we're kind of struggling. In the language department, right? Can't really make friends. It's kind of difficult switching jobs and maybe finding future wife.
It affects everything.
Relationships.
That's what people don't understand. It affects everything, right?
Yeah. And so the number one thing I would tell them is to just try to learn the language. I know Cantonese is difficult, but trust me, if you can somehow learn Cantonese and make that first barrier go away, more opportunities come to you. Right?
100%. 100%. I feel like you hit the hammer on the nail. Yeah.
It's always a great city, you know. You can make good money. Taxes not that high. Yeah. I mean, the flats are pretty much small, but it's a great city. But language barrier is the main issue that students face here.
I feel like Hong Kong it tends to advertise itself as like an international city abroad. The Hong Kong government spends a lot of of its budget on PR campaigns abroad to promote Hong Kong to different people, both tourists and government wants people, like I said, to come here for tertiary education, more international students in the universities. Also, the wants to attract more people to work here. I think what they don't sort of mention is what you kind of said is like you need to know Cantonese, otherwise affects for everything, your jobs, your personal relationships. They're all going to be significantly limited.
I mean, another example, if you look at Singapore. Singapore was behind Hong Kong a few years ago. Now it's sort of beating Hong Kong in every aspect.
Yeah, that's
right. Look at it.
That's it.
And it's a multi.
They
speak Chinese, Asian, and English, but the main language is English, right? People are able to communicate. People are able to work. They're able to make a living. They have a good quality of life. But you don't really see that in Hong Kong.
Yes. I think so. It's because the two cities, they have they're obviously in different places, but also they're affected by different politics, right? Singapore had a strong leader who said okay, we have this multiracial society and no one understands each other. And there's a really famous video of him, Lee Kuan Yew, saying, why did we introduce English and make it compulsory for everyone to learn English? Because people couldn't understand the same jokes. So I felt like that was a really good point. In Hong Kong, however, because in '97 that's when we shed our colonial government. What happened was the Chinese government
immediately reintroduced
Mhm.
Cantonese
Mhm.
into a lot of a lot of schools in the education system, and a few schools didn't switch. They remained English, like medium of instruction, and the rest switched to Cantonese. So that kind of like deteriorated like people's ability to speak English.
Mm.
So I think like the political circumstances made it so that
Mhm.
you know Hong Kong kind of fell behind in like this language department, but Singapore definitely
Mhm.
like their leader had the foresight to.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So, but yeah, you know what? I think we've sort of gone over
Mhm.
a lot, and I think if you have anything else to add, like you can add, or
Um, I mean, I don't want to scare people about Hong Kong. Maybe that's what it seems like. About that for
No, but-
experience, and then
but
we'll
this
say,
is-
"Oh, if you don't know Cantonese, kind of sucks."
this is facts though.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be honest with
Yeah.
you, like I didn't want to make like a PR video about Hong Kong. Like, you go to YouTube, there's a lot of documentaries about like Hong Kong that's showing like come travel, come visit.
Mm.
But I just felt like it doesn't reflect reality on the ground,
Yeah.
and I felt like some people I just want people to have to be able to make an informed decision when they come here, like or whether they choose to come here to like live and
I just hope this raises awareness about the issues in Hong Kong. you
yeah
know.
yeah
I mean, language being one, and
Yeah.
Hong Kong has a lot of issues actually. Even the coffin apartments,
yeah
inflation, uh, the
the economy itself is
economy,
pretty bad.
the flats.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues, and I think we have to talk about these issues.
Yeah.
We should get hidden.
I think that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Like I don't see a lot of people really talking about this. And so yeah, I feel like it's good to have this discussion in the open.
Mm.
I think like as Asian people, like we tend to not talk about issues.
Mm.
Like we just kind of like bear with it,
But it's also funny how Hong Kong, even like it was a colony of British, and
Yeah.
the locals here, they love British people.
Yeah.
Funny how they don't make English the main language.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah.
Ironic, actually, when you think about it.
It's because of like 97 handover.
But was English the main language before?
In a lot of schools, yeah, it was.
Mm.
Yeah. I'd say definitely I think more
Mm.
before, like after 97, a lot of schools reintroduced Cantonese as the main language of instruction. So yeah.
And now, if you didn't know, the government is enforcing Mandarin classes.
Mandarin.
So
Yeah.
students don't even learn Cantonese anymore. They have to take Mandarin.
Okay. So are they being taught in Mandarin, or are they like
Yeah.
is it like
you
subject?
get to pick. You
Ah.
have Cantonese as well, but
Yeah.
there's also Mandarin. So you're learning Cantonese and Mandarin and English.
Right. Yeah.
And I've noticed the English ability has generally decreased.
Yeah.
Even me, I'm having to learn Mandarin now, and my Cantonese, is getting better because I've been trying.
Yeah.
And I've been living here so long.
Same.
And now I have to learn Mandarin now because my job
Yeah.
gets really tough
Yeah.
when I have to teach English, and the kids
They don't.
have no idea.
They have
No idea.
no ground.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero ability.
Zero. Zero ability. Yeah. You know what? I think that covers everything.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Basically, look, the gist of everything that we've sort of talked about so far, like, working or getting a job or the education here, if you're, a non-Chinese person in Hong Kong, like the scope of it's pretty dismal, right? It's not something to be taken lightly. If you're considering moving to Hong Kong for education or work, this will affect you. All right? So, some people, like a challenge. So they might move here for work because they want to see what it's like, to work in a different environment. My personal opinion, though, I'm trying to stay objective here, but personally, if you were to ask me personally, what's your what's something you're trying to convey, I'd say do not come here for education. Because if you come here for education, like once you graduate, you're gonna have difficulty finding a job, right? And your interpersonal relationships will suffer, right? I mean, they're gonna be the people you can talk to. It's really constrained, right? The other person needs to know English, right? Unless you learn Chinese, but good luck with that. So let's talk about the representation of minorities in media. So that's television and movies, right? Basically, there is none, and what little there is from time to time, it's all negative. So minorities are typically portrayed in negative roles like criminals, and obviously they're all minor roles. Now, recall that around 8% of Hong Kong's population are foreigners, right? Are minorities. So, in contrast, the US, 5% of its population are Asian Americans, and we know that Asian American representation in American media is increasing. And then you think about Hong Kong, which claims to be Asia's world city, and there is next to zero representation of minorities in its media. In fact, not so long ago, there was, I think, 2 cases, but I can remember one where an actress in a TV show actually colored her skin brown to portray a Filipino. And I want you to take note of the differences in the sensibilities of the Western crowd. The Western crowd would know not to do something like black or brown face. And the local Hong Kong Chinese crowd, where the actress actually thought was appropriate to do something like that. I have an article here which talks about some of these issues, and we're gonna go through that word by word, because I don't want you to take my word on this. Let's see what a news article published in South China Morning Post has to say about the representation of minorities in Hong Kong media. Okay, so here's the article in the South China Morning Post. From critical analysis to breakthrough. Education University of Hong Kong Professor Ernie's research on ethnic minority media representation reaches UN Forum. Despite Hong Kong's multicultural heritage, racism persists in the city's mainstream media. In October 2022, TVB, the largest broadcaster, faced public criticism for using blackface in a drama episode, shortly after an actress apologized for wearing brown makeup to portray a Filipino domestic worker. Recognizing the void surrounding a sustained and meaningful debate on the problem of racism in the city, Professor John Ernie, Dean of the Faculty of Humanities at the Education University of Hong Kong, has emerged as a leading voice through his cultural research. His scholarly work that spans nearly 20 years examines how ethnic minorities are portrayed across Hong Kong's mainstream media. Through his research, he hopes to elevate the public consciousness while fostering genuine cultural diversity within the city. Findings: misrepresentation and underrepresentation. Ernie's findings indicate that South Asians and other ethnic minorities in Hong Kong are consistently underrepresented and misrepresented in mainstream media. They're cast in roles reinforcing mostly negative stereotypes, mainly as criminals, gangsters, or comedic characters, thereby contributing to their characterization as a radicalized other. His co-authored book on the images of non-Chinese in 4 decades of Hong Kong cinema, citing Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Express, states, the portrayal of South Asians was relatively negative and stereotypical. These characters were either drug dealers or thieves, willing to break the law for money. Ernie added that while such patterns are not unique to Hong Kong, they deepen social divisions and perpetuate the symbolic annihilation of ethnic minorities. Ernie's research exposes blind spots within the media industry and in society as a whole regarding ethnic minorities' lived experiences. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the shortcomings. The pandemic revealed our dangerous lack of direct connections with these communities, explains the specialist. Their infection rates may have been disproportionately higher, but since statistics were aggregated with general population data only, we could not quantify the true impact. Roots, economic and cultural. He explained the economic and cultural roots of media distortions. Despite their history of immigration and contribution since the colonial era, many ethnic minorities today are confined to manual labor jobs, including cleaners, guards, and construction workers, explains the dean. With such low socioeconomic status, the local mainstream media, driven by commercial interests, often ignore them. When they do appear, film and television narratives often reinforce stereotypes, framing them as subordinate, ignorant, and sometimes idiotic. He further notes audience taste contributes to these distortions. Media content reflects what viewers want to see, whether it's sensationalized violence or gang-related storylines involving these communities. Significance, revealing cultural fabric. The significance of his research extends beyond academia. This research reveals who shapes our city's cultural fabric, Ernie emphasizes. In all, his work serves three functions: mapping Hong Kong's cultural diversity, giving voice to marginalized communities, and aligning local media and cultural studies with global practices. Improvements, digital countercurrents. Despite persistent media misrepresentations, Ernie has observed encouraging shifts, particularly among younger Hong Kongers. This change stems from their diversified media diet on social platforms, which also has seen some young ethnic minorities self-representations across new social media channels. Many have developed sophisticated digital media skills, employing DIY approaches such as transmedia storytelling and music production to create alternative narratives, he says. Currently, about a dozen ethnic minority youths have gained popularity on social media in Hong Kong. The next part I'm not going to get into, but yeah, we've covered the sort of gist of what I was saying about, misrepresentation and underrepresentation of minorities in Hong Kong media. So there you go, guys. Asia's World City. Asia's World City. That's what it calls itself. And yeah, that's the state of affairs in 2025 in Hong Kong. You know what the funny thing about all this is, you have actors and actresses from Hong Kong, like for example Michelle Yeoh, she started her acting career in Hong Kong, that are going to go to the US and cry for more representation of Asian Americans in American media, but while they're in Hong Kong, they will never raise their voice for the minorities in Hong Kong to be represented in Hong Kong media. Right? I mean, that's what they're like, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth. You form your own opinion, right? There have been several actors and actresses from Hong Kong who've worked in Hollywood, and they've benefited from the representation that Hollywood was able to give to them, and they always cry for more representation. There are several interviews of Michelle Yeoh where she's always extolling the virtues of representation in media, in American media. Several. But she never once then comes to Hong Kong and she's just quiet about representation. She never uses her voice to say that, hey, we need more representation of the minorities in Hong Kong media. Right? It's just a bunch of bullshit, dude. The actors and actresses in Hong Kong, they're just a bunch of bullshitters. Alright? That's my personal opinion. Sorry about that. But yeah, what can you do? They stand to benefit from their roles, getting roles in the US. So they're gonna be like, oh, representation, we need representation. Like, dude, you, like, alright, man, like that. Well, it is what it is. Rant's over. Yo, alright, so let's take a look at, some videos of Michelle Yeoh talk about representation in American media, and yeah, let's see what she has to say.
Representation matters. And by your choices over the years, you demanded that attention must be paid to other cultures and a larger world of talent. I thank you for that.
Wonderful. the caveat she forgot to add is that she thinks representation only matters in American media.
Why I'm saying that? I am seeing there are more stories being told. Things that I tried to pitch 10 years ago, 15 years ago, would have been met with like, oh yeah, very interesting. But maybe the time is not right. So we have not for the lack of trying, but it was not being received, and minds were not that open yet. Because at that point, it was just talk, just the beginning of what is diversity, inclusivity. Don't always show these people in a very stereotyped way. They deserve a life. They deserve to have their dreams and their aspirations, their hopes. What are they? That's what we need to understand. So I see the change.
Right, again, she's only talking about, she's not going to say any of that in Hong Kong about Hong Kong media, but she's going to go to the US and she's going to have these conversations, and she's going to demand more representation of Asian Americans in America. So, I don't know. I mean, fucking make it make sense to me. She's just a hypocrite.
I've been watching the change, and I think there's a whole group of us that are pushing for that change, and we can't take our foot off the pedal in that way.
With success that you're having right now,
watch how she tears up about the fact that someone that looks like her gets represented in American media. Just watch.
A lot, and it's not just mattering to me. It's shining the light on a part of the world of people that looks like me, who's never been included. So it matters. And yes, do I want it? Yes, I want it. Not just, yes, for me, but not just for me, but just to say we all can sit at the same table, work together, and tell beautiful stories together.
How wonderful. How wonderful. Look at that. How touching. I'm glad she's having the time of her life. And that but I still think that the fact that she's portraying this face in the US about, demanding representation and like being all giddy about once she gets it, and the fact that she doesn't do the same in Hong Kong for the minorities in Hong Kong media to be represented, like, okay, like I think it's just she's really self-serving. Like the actors and actresses in Hong Kong are really self-serving, and they're just a bunch of bullshitters. So yeah, fuck it, right? What can you do? Michelle, I would ask you this if I had a chance. Where is my representation in Hong Kong media? Where are my opportunities in Hong Kong media? And where are roles for South Asians and Southeast Asians in Hong Kong media? And why don't you say something about that? And not just Michelle, I'd say that to Donnie, Yen, Jackie Chan, and Chow Yun Fat, and all the others. But I already know the answer, and I think so do you. They don't give a fuck about Hong Kong. They don't give a fuck about Hong Kong minorities. They don't give a fuck about anything or anyone but themselves. That's that.
Proud and so happy that I see a sea of change where, we have been talking about diversity, inclusivity, breaking away from stereotypes and all that. But it's not just lip service. It is happening. And I am...
Wow, it's happening in the US, Michelle. It's not happening in Hong Kong. I mean, you started your career in Hong Kong, and you don't give a fuck about those causes, actually. You just care about those causes in the US. Because in Hong Kong, there's still misrepresentation and underrepresentation of minorities in Hong Kong. all right, that live in Hong Kong. So why don't you use your voice to speak for us, right? You're just a bullshitter, Michelle. We all see through you. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, all right? We've talked about the representation of minorities in media, about, employment, about, getting jobs here in Hong Kong, what that's like. Well, what's ground reality, right? So I'm telling you, hey, there's like 8% of the people here are foreigners, of which 5% are Filipino and Indonesians. Like, what does that look like? What does that society actually look like? And you're saying that, the people here are misrepresented and underrepresented in the local media. Why is that? Well, first of all, I don't know why we're misrepresented and underrepresented. But let me show you what ground reality is like. Because when we talk about Filipinos and Indonesians here, the majority of them are actually domestic helpers. And they only get 1 day a week, that's Sunday, to themselves. And they, that's when you truly get to see the reality of Hong Kong society, the reality of its composition. And let me show you what every Sunday here in this city looks like, where it's just a lot of these Filipino Indonesian domestic helpers, they come out, and they're obviously, the city does not have the infrastructure to accommodate them, and so they're left with no choice but to picnic in whatever place they can find. Let's have a look. This is what a shopping district in an area called Central looks like. And the following scenes are what it looks like on a Sunday. So basically, all over the city, whichever area is available to picnic, it will be occupied on Sundays. And I don't mind, but I just want people to know that that's what Hong Kong's like. Alright. End of the documentary, or whatever you want to call it. Just want to say, look, I wanted to make, I wanted to go over some news articles and stuff, sort of supporting my points about how Hong Kong's not really a good place for, people, I guess not for people, but for foreigners to live in. But then there were so many articles, and they're all so good, that I think it's better if I just leave them in the description. And if you're more curious about, learning about Hong Kong and the lives of foreigners here, just read those articles. They sort of, will give you greater insight into what some of the things mentioned in this documentary, some of the things that I went through with the interviewees. Lastly, I just want to end it by saying that this was for all of my friends, my classmates, in my primary and secondary school. Yeah, this is the best picture I could find, but shout out to Delia Broadway and primary school in Meifu. So this was for all the ethnic minorities in Hong Kong, past, present, and future. And if you're an ethnic minority in Hong Kong and you're watching this, no matter when, there's really only two words I got for you. Get out. get out of this city. There's nothing here for us. Alright? Ciao. Peace out.
They keep us down, put us in separate schools, don't care about what we learn. We graduate on the lower rung of the ladder of society. They don't care about us integrating. See, they don't want that. They want to keep us poor. They marginalize us to create a lower class, one that'll serve them. Wonder why that is? Let me reveal. They wonder why some people sell tokens, some of them steal. Just because you don't like it don't mean it's not real. Money and dice, fast cash and cold ice. You never see these on those Instagram reels. Same old story, just another city. But now things are different because that time's distant and I'm left feeling vacant. I'm left feeling how we should have done things different in this here town. We were set down this road, please understand I got a vent. The system segregated us, our eyes hold discontent. Construction worker, pizza delivery man. They don't even give us a place to rent. Asia's world city, that's just misrepresent. They want to keep us down, perpetual torment. That's the kind of bullshit going on in the Pearl of the Orient.
This is a norm that you see faces like ours, up there being nominated and being given equal opportunity to play those roles. Is why representation matters and why diversity on and off the screen have been a major priority for me.
Oh, it's been a major priority for you? You're also busy fighting for minorities in the US. It's true. What about the minorities here in the city that stars your careers? You'll never helped us. How you help yourselves abroad, for real? Maybe you were unaware of our plight. Or maybe you just don't care about minorities equally everywhere. Don't care about us while answering Hollywood's call. Hearing you made another hit while we're still struggling to be heard, it's bullshit. Let me tell you, just using your voice in Hollywood for yourselves, that's just wrong. Where's our film roles, our representation? Where's our opportunities in Hong Kong? We lack a voice in society, we saw you coke, fix your roads. We don't have a choice, our schools didn't teach us your language. But we'll treat you nice, we'll even fix you your sandwich. Nobody wants us unless they want wontons and pizzas. To add on to that, everyone still spites us. When we were in school, even the teachers never liked us. They told us it didn't matter if we tried, we couldn't pursue our calling because we weren't smart enough to get into college. That's the kind of logic we heard every day. School's a place for fun and we went there to play.
Every year, new blood graduating on the block, figuring out what this life we live out, breaking down, experiencing the drug of life. What you know will be too late by the time.
What kind of twisted creature poisons the mind of teenagers turning into young adults, always using the words to hurt us like darts? Low-income education, we were set to fail from the start. Just because we're indifferent, that's what we got. Is it hard to see why some of us became indifferent? All the pills that you bought. Nothing ever changes, graduated 10 years, life's hard, working every day, competing against others, tiring and grueling. Still see the new kids take the same lane out of school because they took the piss out of schooling. What awaits them down the line but the same pain? Why is nobody learning? When school ends, we're all just left yearning.
Oh, window shut, doors closed, we're just out of killing time, leaving life without a footprint.
Now I've shown you, this the clue, this the blueprint, wake up, we're born to lose. Where's the difference?
Every year, new blood wasting on the block, figuring out what this life we live out, breaking down, experiencing the drug of life. What you know will be too late by the time. New blood spilling on the block, figured out what this life we live out, broken down, wishing for a different life. But one wonders it's too late by the time.
Past is dear, nothing's planned, future's dim. No one thing's clear. Listen up, there's still second chances here.